What makes someone a real superhero? It is not the cape, it is not the costume, it is not the special effects. A real superhero is someone who sees evil, fear, suffering, or danger and decides to act anyway. A real superhero is someone who risks everything for other people. Some heroes save a single life, some save thousands, some fight with weapons, some fight with words, some survive impossible situations and still keep going, and some make one decision that changes history forever. Today we are looking at real-life superheroes, not fictional characters, not comic book legends, real people, people who lived, suffered, fought, and sacrificed in ways that sound almost unbelievable. And the first one is Witold Pilecki. Witold Pilecki is one of the bravest men who ever lived. He was a Polish resistance fighter during World War II, and he voluntarily entered Auschwitz. He was not captured and sent there by accident. He chose to go in. He wanted to gather intelligence from inside the camp and tell the world what the Nazis were doing. Think about that for a second. Auschwitz was one of the most horrifying places in human history. People were starved, beaten, tortured, and murdered there every day. And Pilecki walked into that nightmare on purpose. He lived inside the camp. He organized resistance. He sent reports out to the outside world. He tried to expose the truth while surrounded by death. That is not ordinary bravery. That is a level of courage most people cannot even imagine. Pilecki knew what could happen to him. He knew he might never come out. And he went anyway. He sacrificed his own safety so the world could know the truth. That is what a real hero looks like. Now let's talk about William Wilberforce. Wilberforce was not a soldier. He did not charge into battle with a sword. He fought a different kind of war. He fought slavery. For years, he worked to end the British slave trade, and he kept going even when the system seemed impossible to change. That is what makes him so powerful. He did not just feel bad about injustice, he did something about it. He gave speeches, he pushed legislation, he faced resistance from powerful people who benefited from slavery, and still he did not stop. Year after year, he kept fighting. Change did not come quickly, it did not come easily, but because Wilberforce refused to give up, history moved. The slave trade was eventually abolished in the British Empire, and his work helped change the course of human history. That is heroism too, not just the dramatic kind, the kind that takes patience, the kind that takes discipline, the kind that takes years of refusing to quit when everybody tells you it will never work. Wilberforce proved that persistence can be just as powerful as any weapon. Now let's move to Audie Murphy. Audie Murphy was one of the most decorated American soldiers of World War II. He was young, he was small, and he became legendary. Murphy showed extraordinary bravery in combat over and over again. One of the most famous moments of his life came when he climbed onto a burning tank destroyer and used its machine gun to hold off enemy soldiers. He was under heavy fire. The situation was chaotic. Most people would have run. Murphy fought back and he kept going. He defended his position and saved lives. That moment helped make him one of the most famous war heroes in American history. But what makes Murphy so interesting is that he was not some giant action movie machine. He was a real person, a human being, someone who was scared, hurt, and under extreme pressure, and still found the strength to keep fighting. That is the part people forget about heroes. Being brave does not mean feeling no fear. It means doing the right thing even while fear is screaming at you. Audie Murphy did that, again and again. And because of that, he became a symbol of courage and resilience. Now let's talk about Kyle Carpenter. Kyle Carpenter is a modern American hero whose story is almost impossible to believe. He was serving as a Marine in Afghanistan when a grenade landed near him and another Marine. In that instant, he made a choice. He threw himself onto the grenade to protect his fellow Marine. That is one of the most selfless acts a human being can make. He knew what could happen. He knew the consequences, and in that split second, he chose someone else's life over his own. He survived, but the injuries were severe. His recovery was long and painful. He had to endure surgeries, therapy, and years of rebuilding his life. And yet his story is not just about survival, it is about sacrifice. It is about the kind of love and loyalty that puts another person first, even at the cost of everything. That is why Kyle Carpenter belongs in the same conversation as the greatest heroes in history. He showed that courage is not just about standing tall. Sometimes courage is about throwing yourself down. Sometimes it is about making the most selfless decision possible in a split second. And that is what he did. That is why people remember him. Now here is the bigger truth. Real-life superheroes do not all look the same. Some change the world by exposing evil. Some fight injustice through politics and persistence. Some earn medals on the battlefield. Some save a single life in a moment of terror. But all of them have something in common. They choose others over themselves. That is the core of heroism. Not fame, not glory, not being admired. Choice, the choice to act. the choice to endure, the choice to sacrifice. Witold Pilecki chose to enter a death camp. William Wilberforce chose to fight slavery for years. Audie Murphy chose to stand and fight under fire. Kyle Carpenter chose to shield another human being with his own body. Different people, different eras, different forms of courage, but the same heart, the same selflessness, the same willingness to do something most people could never do. That is what makes them real superheroes. And honestly, the world needs more reminders like this. Because it is easy to think of heroism as something fictional and something reserved for movies, comics, or legends. But real heroism has always existed. It exists in history. It exists in sacrifice. It exists in the people who stand up when it would be easier to sit down. Sometimes the most powerful person in the room is not the loudest. It is the one willing to suffer for someone else. It is the one willing to take a risk for what is right. It is the one willing to keep going when giving up would be easier. That is the lesson these heroes leave behind. They remind us that ordinary human beings can do extraordinary things. They remind us that courage is real. They remind us that one person can make a difference. And they remind us that history is shaped not only by armies and governments, but by individuals willing to act with honor. So the next time someone says real superheroes do not exist, remember these names: Witold Pilecki, William Wilberforce, Audie Murphy, Kyle Carpenter. These were not fictional heroes. These were real people, the people who lived in the real world and still found the strength to do the unbelievable. And that may be the most heroic thing of all. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe for more stories about real people who changed history. And in the comments, tell me this: which of these heroes do you think is the most inspiring?